Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The research cell of Asufii Christian Institute welcome each and every one of you to be a part of this webinar on Mao language. And I hope and pray that this webinar will benefit to all the participants. So before we go in the process, so here is a reminder to all the participants to mute your audio and video for better connectivity. And the webinar will be bilingual, that is either English or Maola. So here, both the speaker as well as the participants can ask their question either in Maola or English, or we can say it Mao mix. So whichever you can speak. So after the session is over, question and queries can be either dropped in the chat box or you can raise your hand. Directly, you can directly ask to the speaker, right? And you can raise your hand. So that is the information. Now let me highlight the order of the program. So the moderator will be me, and the welcome address will be given by Reverend Loli Kape, Principal of Asufii Christian Institute. And after that, keynote address will be delivered by Reverend Dr. Father William Nepuni. So presently he's the principal of St. Xavier's College, Senapati, and also the Secretary General of Mao Academy. And after that, we'll hear that message, or our main speaker will be Dr. Sahiinii Veikho, who is an assistant professor at the English department of Asufii Christian Institute. So after that, there will be question and answer session. So here, when the question and answer session is on, the participant can either drop their question in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and directly ask from the speaker. So after that, there will be vote of thanks, which will be given by Sir Atili, who is the lecturer, Department of Maola, Asufii Christian Institute. So without further delay of our time, let's proceed to welcome address from Reverend Loli Kape, Principal, Asufii Christian Institute. So the time is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I would like to thank God for granting us this opportunity to have this webinar. Thank you, Asia Research, for giving me this privilege and for organizing. It is so encouraging to see the good response of the participants coming from various backgrounds, including some prominent scholars, intellectuals, Mao Academy members, community leaders, church leaders, teachers, and student friends. On behalf of the organizer and ACI family, I'm very happy to welcome all of you and thank everyone for your support and encouragement. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very privileged to have two very resourceful speakers for today's webinar. And with much delight, I would like to introduce and welcome them into our midst. Our first speaker is Reverend Father Dr. William Nepuni, Secretary, Mao Academy, and Principal of St. Xavier College, Senapati. He will give us the keynote address on the topic, Understanding of the Importance of Maola, Vernacular Language. Father Nepuni did his PhD in history, and his research work has been published in the book form entitled A Socio-Cultural History of Supome Naga Tribe. Prior to that, he has translated the Maola Holy Bible of Roman Catholic Version and also published Mao Language Dictionary. He is also the visiting professor of Orient Theological College, Shillong, and the Bosco Maram College, teaching cultural anthropology and Southeast Asia in the Department of History. He has been involved in the Mao Academy for many years, perhaps since the very inception, and has been working tirelessly along with the academic members in developing and getting the recognition of Maola by the government of Manipur. Today, Maola has been introduced up to the high secondary level, and the academy is preparing to upgrade Maola to undergraduate level. We're very proud of this good progress and express our profound appreciation to Father Nepuni and the Mao Academy members for their sacrifice and contribution towards the development of Maola. When we planned to organize this webinar on Maola, we could not think of another person than Father William Nepuni to deliver a keynote address to enlighten us on the topic, because by virtue of his long experience and all knowledge that he has gained over the year, he has the authority over Maola subject. It is indeed great honor for us to have him in our midst representing the Mao Academy. Thank you so much, Father, for accepting our invitation, encouraging us with your valuable presence. A hearty welcome to you. Our second speaker is Dr. Sahiinii Veikho, Assistant Professor, Department of English, ACI. He will be speaking on the topic, No Adjective in Mao Language, an update from Mao Database Project at SCI Mao. Dr. Sahiinii has done his PhD from the University of Bern, Switzerland, in English Linguistic in 2019 and joined ACI in 2020. His research work will be published in book form this year. He is a very resourceful scholar who has so much concern for our people, especially in the development of our Mao language. He, along with Maola teacher Saratili, initiated a new project in the Institute, namely Mao Database Project, with the aim to promote the development of Maola. We really appreciate him for his initiative and pray that God continue to grant him success in all his future endeavors. We're indeed privileged to have such a well-qualified and resourceful person in our midst, especially from the field of linguistic, which is rare to find. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Sahiinii, and thank you so much for being one of the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, the main purpose of today's webinar is to share together our opinions and thoughts on how to enrich Maola for further development as a standard modern language. I'm a layman in the field of language, but I understand that all the languages of the world have gone through a process of evolution along with the passage of time. The Maola is no exception. Since the first translation of the Bible into Maola by the pioneer Christian evangelist, it has been developing and growing richer by the year. It is becoming more important in the context of the new education policy of 2020 of the Government of India, which encourages teaching the children in their own mother tongue or local dialects before they are made to learn any other languages. And in the experience of ACI for the last few years of offering Maola subject in the higher secondary level, our students are doing very well in Maola and securing higher marks in Maola than other subjects, producing subject toppers every year. Therefore, by seeing these good performances of the students and their increasing interest to take up Maola instead of alternative English, ACI is encouraged to give more attention to Maola. And I hope everyone will agree on this, that it is very important for all of us to ponder together and pool our resources together for the further development of Maola, which would help the young students not only to learn the academic knowledge, but also learn their mother tongue and preserve their distinct identity as a community. With these words, I once again welcome everyone to have fruitful webinar. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, Momo's on. Okay, maybe he's finished his speech.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello,
Oh,
oh,
I start so hello.
Sir
okay,
Kolo.
oh, okay. Because of connectivity, sorry. So
Okay.
since everyone is requesting, since it is a Maola webinar, so I'll speak in Mao. So thank you, sir. Our color the principal. No, you ita mushun he korab de. Ita father Nepuni, William Nepuni no. Or topic Kalivan teles understanding the importance of Maola vernacular language. You know, Zwan tele. Father Nepuni no ni time for that.
Okay. Gary release so orame Carlos Tawe. Yeah, Asufii Christian Institute Principal Loli. Yeah, webinar team. Imela o Maola vano o lakashi. Yeah, lesha chakra ubu kumito pehena ano ikume Carlos Tawe. Maola vano pere just lady Maola ye susale oku ola ye culture susale oji oku ola ye oji hino chuj perfect galele jat kale he motsu shukocho ye oku ola ko buvano oji ko buvano jat he motsu shwe to po ye atho shwe to ileno po so this no Ijochi Tuni Asufii Christian Institute no webinar Maola he motsute jivano asate ye ole asacho please no nikumito pese Carlos toa Manipur government Manipur Sarkar no memory Mao tribe here official so major tribe to recognize so lovano yes please no icho Mao Academy to tennis lele Mao Literature Society to mufu trailer kichu kwa shepadu shepunga no Mao la he teni mo otsukano ole no shupo Mao la he modolo le she yeso ojilo le she yeso majele le she ro chito la revekati ti dabra ana mufu trailer kichu kwa rinya chanyu ko no otsuka muimale ita first class officials, zonal education officials, government renewal so book to pino oleno pulo Mao Literature Society timo Mao Academy to kodale share to oleno mufu thale kichu ko inya chani ko no Mao Academy to jolele so tholo ijochi thuni ta ko los 어찌지 배치었다고 물 빠지거나 수마저 비드나 볼레까 골로세테 예 어찌카 빠져 올레노 어따들리노 시키물로 뿌고서 에 벌레는 가스분서 고스분의 거서 벌레는 풀고로 올레노 이바 미팅이 부로 비치고서 오타 다리서 보고 프로 다리서 마오 아카데미 소피 지스노 이쪽도 마오 아카데미 members committee of the committee of the Tracolosite yet you were to pesa pole Ramanov Polesa Shabioro ano judge to Mao Academy Teso the way. Mufut to Galio Pichuquarinia Chanuquino Mao Academy Soto Lotis officially so literature because class Kalino class Pongo to so shubu. Ye mufut to Galio Mufutuka here, chip was such a padigina, Mr. Pino, chip, quiver some lisher, quiver some Maola here, some Majum lisher or economic of possess, Maokani members commit of possess was so. This no Mufutuka here, Chachakwe, class Kalino for class Shakotui, board of
Father, name meet liver. Unmute so, sir. Father.
We can also request Father to own his video if that's possible.
Nyama.
Video on also this of this Father. So it's you.
Video though. Okay. This no. Nyado, totally. Okay. No mufutuka here, chachakoi. Maola no modoko, laras. First time, really so it has a metrics error. Yes, of course, so much that ita uhika properly. Ita uhika properly. This is chilive area head no lotus no. Avila no waffen no. First, Maola he for no metrically highest marks in yellow. This no Utakolo ye olekashi Maola. It's Mufuta here, Chachano, metrics rari. Icho onamis page, no, ole no shifa, polo dus no, ye, ime jahalipi, tadubi, erepi, school check or sus, Maola po, ole no show, over charity magie, atachiva deo, oku. Shipu pratuha, ojama maji, ite buka deshu. Ana, iso chutuni nyalo olekashi, ye, onami pajino. Truly, large is not modo odus no, class kalino for shaka hikutui, truly, school top 3, itaja arapi top 3, more life ho. Ye mupu, tukahyo, chiapungono, class 11, 12 here, Maola for Tom Lisher or more academy no duo. Mufu took a here, church a new way, class shakahu, more lamp for all us. Arisa tops attendingly, it all Asufii Christian Institute, I know, Maola, Pasano, Patano. First, Kariri top 10 is no, Patam do no. Asufii Christian Institute, it have Krakolas happen new, you last such a this only higher secondary class 11, 12, it's all Melas formulation, Maolas formulation, the ones no. Ano Pekanis Mupu Makyo Kalu, Ichui Mupu Makyo Liu, Secretary, Mao Academy Suko Solihi, Mupa Joko, Akosa also, Chairman, Mao Academy Chairman, Mupa Joko, Reverend, yeah, also, yes, school, you know, also my government, you know, also my Shahra, you know, also my Mupa, or the no shipper, it has a Mao Academy law. Yes, please no, all please no, Shikimulo Papi, it has a Mao Council, a joy, it has a Minister Dico. Karisu o ita je cho MLA kais potom to shikim los lili ita je textbook Maola textbook is so much pun mishero shikim los ka pidus no lekta los at kahe kuchuna ano la sajo Maola ve ita so much mulisher to osos lili mupu chuka hyo chechoro chechanigui ita Maola CBSE le ako register so mulisher to mupu chuka hyo chechoro chechaniri Maola CBSE deliriabo ita so to mulisher to do. Yes, listen, Mao Research Scholars or Mao Scholars Association delita tas ako chitu. Icho vehi COVID vaino talok ashe vaino ita icho nyamo hinai achiebu CBSE Mao lavano. This no ulle no chose ile jahali kuli tumo vako bume Mao Scholars Association potapunto da asa chitu ita Mao lai so major mulishero CBSE visa soto. Kosa kuchuna icho class chagalucha hus Maolas sotoredo chito bulis no jolly graduate level BA level se soto mulishero chito bulino meeting chusubu koso program koso che yeba adzo buchno heba koso selele mikri jahale pe sinapati area le mikri jahale email tadubi area le ye Kohima Dimapur area na writers में लड़ दरो अभी में लोटा request हो solution repio conveners da sa poro it should be a first year be a second year be a third year textbook he rak api me muy chorro li chorro to piro ichoko tue ita je barely first year second year third year textbook authors me hob here this no writers me this no is just 20 hey chapter boom here request pu she ita Maola graduation BA level kutu also oleno chutu so le she tabano ano is just 20 hey no ano Mao Academy teso church likosa Mao Frontier Organization kosa Mao Student Union kosa ma ilege Mao la jakmit of the meeting ko so tsu vua ko so tsu Mao Academy tano kokos le ita oleno ovos so le she oleno ovos so le otio na me asa mo do le she yes seminar so le she conference bule she ma refreshers ojami je dunzo teachers refreshers bule ota talis so anam mel ko ichoche meeting ko so tse ako so ole nos mu pa jisum to so vul to look ha ye so vul ngum sa pa jbu additionally ove kile hino shikimulo ko hovano muito feo papilo ko hovano pilo ko havano yes pilis no vu adzoy amaji tovano die ni mo ye office de ko hotwa ota talimo ita vu kadeas this no ita kana ko so ko olejo akoso majepu this no ano ijochi tuni webinar Asufii Christian Institute tahero kakolo iva pachulu ka nyevano ano asajo pepuwa Maola jahi itai soto olo mofutu kahya chachano po mofutu kahya makri joy mofutu ka 2020 itai 2021 tu makya lehe itamui Maola jahi omwe pongonyalo Government of Manipur no pole to lobby pole shiki mo malo utu tapi yes no chochi ojami so government high school hechkono pole no ojai so e kamuko selele over kamuko sele pe marshal this only Maola just this only lo Maola jaya this government school li topi where so lele gamage melamage rules this rules and regulation ko buvas no Mao academy ta sa pelosh atai cho oja Maola ni oja ni olomu to facility ichoche sadapetal high school government high school Mao gate bule ye Mao maram high school higher secondary hey as Maola oja recognize lo government of people mu to facility ta school ka khele bule ano information kali peganis ichwe ita Maola duno ojami choropi gurus bue yes adiche pele higher secondary happy level bu ano Mao area li he tadubi higher secondary kolito ye purul higher secondary kolito dusno icho application Mao academy no icho Government of Manipur hai school ka khiju superior higher secondary ju ka khij kapisle kalis tadubi Mao maram higher secondary school hai kalipiro ye purul higher secondary hai piro additionally image happy ila Mao area pe higher secondary kaliko li thok budus no ye choli no ojabmis appointment ne release purul has goes now illa la sa modol produce no Maola modol produce no police thoiro Mao dictionary ko hovano itai choche majit bu ye Maola lative o la luve ro itaje grammar ko hovana itai majiebu ana icholele chitor budus no ichos vehele Maola o la lu vese grammar book se bu ye dictionary se Mao English dictionary do ano ka tele order lative dus na cho emergency or thola so ma mo tsu shu wa no se bu dus no je tuni Mao academy no so go tu go ye ita ojam ko sa modo apim ko sa ye fairform ko sa school ko bu ko sa college le ko bu ko sa ikume olejo Maola ako modolo le she Maola modore le ni kaka ho Maola simu he mikro la ko sa ma chebo la ko sa sha la ko sa si go sa jte anas pilis no o therefore o pe peno modo api o ku ola a jere si pu olo no ile dus no Mao me dus no Mao jad me dus no oso ajiz bu puyens dus no Maola he ako chito follow le she. Yeah, school chiko principal sobu. Yeah, college chiko no principal sobu commit of the you commit of the Carlos additionally principals kumino ole no bureli. Yes, police no imeme oja maume oja skuli kubu maume oja mi top fino ole no ako mudore lili aje como so mau jats oji peno hodile mo okula shupugo maume ye robo maula ye shupugo maula kinopo ile maume 就是四马之国喽。一个么是无意个是毛们那大个沙巴曼尼，毛们那所有东西，也毛们那治疗、治理、治疗，我个说的非，一类是个是个类似，就是喏，毛们阿拉托罗，一个么毛拉是值得不落那些，啊喏，可说别个你是嘞嘞，别个喏，也 research。Kiva sopul ngulisha jirvano peganis lili lara modome kanyugma kanyugo nije opachulu vako ka prachiko sa ma ileje halikbu sa ni ololo chusa ma ni maul mije odo ke sa ma dance ko sa ologo sa mashinado ologo so samaro ni anori I saw some I fellow some I also some really can you arrest nearly do. So this no Jame Lara Modome equipment of the Maola he modola leshe. Imelas lily alala in newly no shipueble. Imelas lily imeli di mapuli kubo imeme mikli kubo imeme sinapatili imeme kubo imeme ma katimichi inyuka jeno kubo imeme alala lasno shipwe buamulo anak karus lili script ye karus lili mau academy no tago script ye Board of Secondary Education Manipur no recognize golo Council of Higher Education Manipur no recognize golo hina spelling no ako command so tolo leshe lele kwenano ma academy da no kwenano talero officially so pero lele mufu chale tu ko richoro ko achichu larab kaje ko tuti no talero spellings talero officially so then ma academy mufu chale tu ko Vinya Chanigo, Hotogo, Ichokopi, Hina spelling not Talero, Soira, this no, equipment of the Ole no Pulo Leshe, Mao Literature Society, Mao Academy, Mao Textbook Liquor, top fee, equipment ako Ole no Solo Leshe. Okay, so Lily, Olob the Gosa, my chip the Gosa, Idemicosa, Ota Taliso Repra. Ita ma academy ha mosipi ho this no mu to pan ako opproso pro this no ako kalis spelling lacha kali no rolo this no ikumi to best chitulo leshe ora mi kalte ora mi koshwe ma academy members kumi to the chiru to the ichosha bumi to the collector olos to 18 vugurupi Lara Modome, Alagasha, Lara Modome, Ojame, a memory to Maumit of the Ikumatch to TV Licosa, All India Radio Licosa, Elesh Pujo Picosa, Karapicosa, Ikumel, Olano, Asa, Maulahi, Akofolo Leshe. Galote, Opachuli Capidus no, yeah, Asufii Christian Institute, Galote.
Akalore father ninumushu muzino ida mela he kado so wai chuna za mushu muzino pevi na lukrano atan mucho julize hava mau mela hane so ba jue recently covered 1980s or Ma 2000 yen so babam baram chawena, history pick up is 1933, hava develop so chinas, mushumuzuno kapevi, says Sakulima, hava Maola he, Motsute, Sulum Lishe, Kuchurwana mushumuzuno pegabi, there's a Ilila Maolaza, Kaliwan Kalele, Heza culture Kali, with culture tradition, Ilino, preserve Solum Lishi, Dujna, mushumuzuno pegabi, Sakulima have Maola, Mao Kedibino Hava. Hanan Taledura official Sokonas, Ilin Focaso, Talum Nishi, one of Mushumuzun Pekabivano Crocolos Pewe. Two Mushuna, Itan Kurab there, no Mushuna, Ida speaker, Dr. Sahiinii, we have Fuji details to Ita principal Notera and of Heno apologies, Kosoza, Fue, Melan Chapem Morle, and of Shalan Chapedas V, Momosona, supervision or request away. Sir. So, Dr. Sahiinii, you can take your time.
Hello. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Kralotere for this time, and I want to say thank you for this wonderful opportunity that I'm getting to share a little bit about Mao language. And I'm also very grateful to even be on the same panel with Father Dr. William Nepuni. I have read your works, and also I have learned a lot from what you have done in Mao and also for the Sepo Maram. So I'm very grateful. And before I start, I want to say that I'm not a Mao expert. I'm a linguist, and I know a little bit about the grammar theories. So I will be sharing on the works that we're doing in the department with the Mao department and English department, which is initiated by the research cell. So we are doing a small project. So based on that and my findings on Mao, I'll be sharing. So I hope we'll all have a fruitful time, and I'm really grateful and excited for this program today. So the topic we and I have decided is to say on adjectives in Mao language. So first, let us look into the affinity of the language, the Mao. So linguistically, Mao is also classified as one of the Trans-Himalayan language under the subgroup of Angami Puchuri by George Van Drim and also many other scholars that they have grouped Mao and many other Sepo Maram languages under the Angami Puchuri. And this group it's a very unstudied group. So there are many things to find out and even give a better understanding or description about the language. So under the classification of Van Drim 2011, the Trans-Himalayan is classified like a tree, and where all these subgroups are like the leaves of the tree. So Mao would be also under the Angami Puchuri clade. So because the linguists believe, depending on the features of the language, that they are of similar group. And when we talk about the language affinity, the Trans-Himalayan languages are also called the Tibeto-Burman versus the Indo-European languages. So the Indo-European languages is very different from the Angami Puchuri or the Trans-Himalayan or the Tibeto-Burman languages. So this is important to know because when we come to analyzing the data, there are some false assumption that we like language writers or linguists make often. So what I want to say is the Indo-European languages, unlike the Tibeto-Burman, is more well studied and also well classified. And most of the works done especially the Northeastern languages, were all spearheaded by the works by the specialists or the linguists or the experts who have worked on the Indo-European languages. Okay, so when we talk about the Angami Puchuri clade, where do we fall, and also where are the Tibeto-Burman languages spoken? So we will see that, which is written here, the Trans-Himalayan. So the yellow, light yellow dots, these are the language, we call it the Trans-Himalayan or the Tibeto-Burman, just spoken. So many Tibeto-Burman languages are also spoken in this Northeast region. So in fact, the highest number of languages of the Tibeto-Burman is spoken in Northeast India. And of course, the highest number of speakers or the population is of course found in this part in the, especially in the China area. So why we are looking this affinity is because when we look into the grammar or the language features, we all have a history because language keeps evolving and keep changing. So like Mao with any other languages which belongs to other Tibeto-Burman languages, they have a history of the noun, the history of the verb, how the verb features are, how the word class are classified when we look them every words in a sentence. So according to one of my favorite scholars or literary critic by George Steiner, he said that when a language dies, a way of understanding the world dies with it. So a way of looking at the world. So either be Maola or Pola or any language, it represents a worldview, how you see the world and how you experience the world. I think this is very important to understand when we study the grammar or when we minutely dig into the language features to upgrade the, I think the literacy or the language work. So when we talk about what are adjective words, there is a huge difference between the worldviews here. When we talk about adjectives, it could be of the Indo-European way of understanding adjectives, or either it could be the Mao speakers or the Tibeto-Burman speakers of understanding what is adjective. So there could be different ways to look into it. So we can view it from different windows. So I think that is very important to understand before we look into even what is a word or what is how our word, even call it noun or a verb or even an adjective, or what is even a preposition or any word that we classify to understand the grammar of a language. So what are adjective words? So the first concept of adjectives, even before the word adjective was there, it's actually from the Greek word, which English translated as epithet. Epithet is literally means actually add position. However, when the Latin scholars translate it from the Greek, they also translate as the appositio, or the Romans grammarians also translate into Latin as the adjectivum. So which is very close to the present English, and eventually they use the word adjectives in Roman script and in many of the grammars that has followed after it. So what we should know is that what is an adjective has different concepts. So the adjective, which they call epithet in the Greek or in the Latin appositio or in the grammar by the Latin translators adjectivum, the concept of adjective is not same. They are different based on what language they are used. So for layman understanding, we all know that adjective are those words that describe nouns, or we also say pronouns, because pronouns are also under noun. Or in schools, we also learn that they are describing words, we describe especially the nouns. So it is also important to know, where do adjectives come from? So as I mentioned that the idea was originated from the Greek grammar, which means epithet, which is technically mean the position that describe the position of the noun. So despite this confusion, experts in the ancient grammar are aware that the category term as adjective or epithet or whatever does not coincide same with any language, or that is even similar with the modern adjective in English. It is not exact, it is different. So now, in Latin grammar, means the ancient grammar, when they first started writing grammar, the parts of speech, which mean in a sentence, how many segments or how many group of words are there, are mainly of two groups, that is noun and verb. So there was not even adjective as such, like primarily the grammar, the word classification were basically found on nouns and verb. So like adjectivum or something that add information to the nouns were used in special occasion, like special use, and this special type of nouns and not a single parts of speech. So adjectives were never even understood as a different parts of speech. Why I'm saying all this is to understand like profoundly and the language and the word class when we write the grammar. I think this will help the students to really understand the semantics of the grammar, the word, if we want to upgrade our language. So I really like what the Fran Boas views. He say that categories, when we say a noun, when we say a verb, or when we say even adjectives, the defining of words, certain group of words should be entirely depend on the inner from each language. I mean, it should depend on the Mao perspective, not from the English perspective. We should look it from the window of the Mao, how the native people understands. And the languages should be described in their own terms. So I'm really impressed, and it's so fascinating to see nouns as described as Juko and verbs as Kosofer or something, which I see in the grammar. I think this is it's very like innovative and clever. I think we should follow this form of describing and naming the word class. So when we talk about word class, I'm sorry, the picture is not very clear here. So when we talk about the word class are split into different groups, like adjectives, like adverbs, or articles, or a preposition, or like nouns, and like any other like groups, that is, we can call it the word classes. So what is important is here is we also should know the correct order where the particular word class can occur, because that is one very important factors that will help us to define that particular word class. When we try to say there is noun in Mao, how do we know that there is noun in Mao? How do we know that there is verb in Mao? How do we know that there is adjective in Mao? There should be certain parameters based on the sentence structure, because the word class or the words are all are the elements or the building blocks of the sentence when we say something meaningful. So what we should know, what is the real concept of adjectives by the English that we learn in school, or many of us know what is an adjective. So adjectives is, according in English language, adjectives functions directly as the modifier of a noun in an NP. For example, a beautiful house. So beautiful describe the house, and also acting as a copula complement. So for example, Maniko is handsome. So handsome is the complement of the copula is, and the subject Maniko. And one very important thing is, it is very different from the other categories. For the English word class, means the adjective in English is very different from verb and noun, because adjective cannot be applied in tense. You cannot say beautiful or handsome cannot be used with tense or aspect or mood marker. They have their own clear, distinct features that we can define that there is adjective in English. So one thing that we can take a note is, adjectives can't take tense or aspect or mood marker. We will come back to this. So now the question is, how do we search and how do we find evidences there is Jupe or adjectives in Mao? So I was searching for evidence. So I read, probably this is the first grammar, and sadly I cannot find the year which was published, actually the year. I think it's the last page is not there, so I don't know which year it was published, but most probably I think this could be the first Maola grammar according to me, but I'm not sure. So if anyone can help me, it will be good. And there are some books which is available, like thanks to SEI administrators, that I can avail all these resources. And also there is a thesis by Dr. Losa Hishu, talks about the ethnosemantic study of Mao language. In his thesis, he really don't focus on the word class, but on the semantics of the different types of word meaning, the semantics part of the word. He did a very good analysis. And also, I think one of the most popular grammar in academia is, I think, the Mao Naga grammar written by P. Giridhar in 1994. So I think this grammar has really popularized Mao in the field of in academia. Many of the Northeastern languages didn't get this opportunity actually. So we'll come back to his work also later. And also there are some works done by Adafro Matibo on tone. And also Professor Alec Cook from Nanyang Technology University in Singapore, he also sent me a thesis written by Quaik Melissa. I think she is probably Singaporean, I'm not sure. This is a master thesis that she wrote on phonological analysis of Mao. And coming to the lexical database at SEI. So for now, we have two types of data. So first is we analyzed all the possible combination of the sound segments with all the consonant vowels, with all the consonant sounds, and with all the vowels, and how those vowels and consonant can combine in all the possible ways, looking at the syllable structures. So we also know that in Mao we don't have the coda, which means a consonant sound doesn't end in the final syllable. It is always open syllable, we call it. So very interesting thing is, historically, when we talk about the tone in the languages that doesn't have coda, doesn't have a consonant at the end of every word, for those languages, usually the tones are very rich. So historically, many linguists have theorized that the loss of coda, means consonant at the final structure, final syllable, is because the loss of the consonant is replaced by many tones. So we also have in Mao 4 to 5 tones. So that is one factor. So probably in future, consonant may be introduced as we keep on speaking Mao, and the tone may reduce to 2, 3. We never know. For at the moment, at present, we have 4 to 5 tones that we see, and also there is no consonant at the coda. And this is it is clearly seen in throughout the Tibeto-Burman languages spoken like across the Himalayan range languages that is available. So wherever there is consonant coda, then tones are very less. So based on that, based on the syllable structure, means all the possible combination of sounds and all the possible tones we have analyzed. And I would like to give credit to Sir Akha for this, the faculty of the Mao department at SEI. And we work together, and we have found till now 273 lexical words, which tell exactly all the possible combination of like all the sounds, consonant and vowels, how much it can be, like how it can be combined. And also all the possible tones, we're looking into it. And also we have a word list, which is generated from genetically related languages, taking care, like giving focus on the Burmese or those huge database that the Trans-Himalayan, the Tibeto-Burman languages they have worked on. So these words are not from the English perspective or from the way looking from the English language, but it is purely based with the related languages, the database. So when we translate those words into Maola, it gives more natural translation or explanation. So we have around now 1,470 lexical words, and this is done with with the contribution of all the faculties like Mao in SUI. And so we plan to work more, and the idea is we want to create a database where the data will be available for like any Mao researcher or our Maola writers, or any person can come and access. And the data will be, the intention is that the data will keep growing. And once we have the data, then it can be used in any form. Like it can be used for publishing, or it can be used for like adding to, it can be published in the form of a huge dictionary, or for analyzing like a database. And we also plan to update this database by entering the Maola works that are published, which are available. And also we're going to look into word formation. Now we have the basic word structure, like monosyllables, a few disyllables. Now we can also look into the word formation process, like compounding, how new words are formed with 2-3 words coming together and giving a new meaning. And also we plan to look into natural conversation, where the elder speaker can tell a story for 30 minutes of like any length, and we can label those words and bring it into the database, because there will get very natural data that we use in the conversation, or which is used in, well, in the indigenous terms, like when we talk about the folklores, or some technical terms could be there, which is based on the culture. And we can also introduce into technical terms. So the whole plan is to have a database, a resource, so that we can promote and support any person working on Maola, so that this data will be like one of the very resourceful things for everyone. And so now when we look into the analysis, I look into nouns. How can we classify nouns in Maola, and how can we classify verbs? So in noun, we all know that noun is, I think in school grammar they say naming word, but technically when the Latin or the Greek people, when they introduced the concept noun, they started with saying that what exists by nature and which can act as a subject in a sentence. So in Maola, the subjects and the objects can be noun. So for example, maniko no toe. So maniko is a subject. Similarly, it can also take the argument markers. So maniko no onaye leshiwe. Please excuse me with my pronunciation. So what it means, maniko love the child. So what I'm trying to say here is the subject, the nouns can occupy the subject and object position. However, verbs, so these are the features that we can say that these are nouns and these are verbs. So in verbs, they occupy the predicate position, which means we also say the verb, the action that tells the action. However, what can distinguish from here is it can take predicate markers like leshiwe, towe. So those markers. And also it can take the aspect markers, which tense and aspect markers. So verb can take keto tole, means will eat. Keto tore mean like maybe eaten or ate. And maniko no keto tomoe mean like he has not like had the food, or is he had not had the dinner. So however, in nouns we cannot use future the marker, or perfect marker, or even negation marker. So these features that verbs take the tense and aspect markers, and the nouns cannot take tense and aspect markers gives a very profound criteria that help us to define that there is noun and verbs in Maola. So the problem we face is we first learn the English grammar, and usually what we do is we used to map the noun is like this, the verb is like that, by taking the English as a blueprint. I think there's so many things will go wrong because there are many languages which you can differentiate even between noun and verbs. So of course I don't have that much time here to go to the detail, but when we teach a student what is a noun and noun, we should say that not only that what exists by nature or naming word, but also the detailed underlying rules that noun mean that it can occupy in the subject position in the sentence. Noun mean it can occupy the object positions. And also when we talk about verbs, verb can occupy the predicate position, can take the tense and aspect marker. I think these are the features that we have to tell the students so that they will know in depth the grammar. So now I call it chupe, or like adjective like words that we map with the English, for example, big. So now let us try to differentiate between jupe words and verbs in Maola. So for example, when we take jupe like adjective in English, for example, the word big. So I can say maniko no jiwe, like maniko is big, like among 2-3 members probably. Similarly, verbs of you can still say maniko no toe. Now the problem here is when we talk about in English we cannot say maniko will big, because big is a classified adjective in English. However, in Maola, we can say maniko no jile, means maniko will be big. In fact, maniko will big, which is the rough conceptual translation in English, which is wrong, but it is accepted in Mao. If you, I mean, I have asked two friends whether maniko no jile mean like maniko will be the big one among 2-3 person. So this kind of, when we try to classify that there is an adjective, when we try to look into how to classify adjective, this kind of problem comes in, because the jupe or adjective like words behave exactly like verbs, because it can take the future marker or the perfect marker, the tense and aspect marker, and also it can take the negation marker like any other verbs. It can take the future marker like any other verbs, because we know that verbs can take all the tense and aspect marker, tole, tore, tomoy, and all these things. And so now we can also, I also look into how the verbs becoming nouns. So there are nominalizers, which mean making a verb into noun, changing the word class. So it is fascinating to see that it is ka and ko. In Pola or many other languages, it is suffix like jiu, do you, or tseju. In Pola, it will be like that. But in Mao, it is kaji, kotse, or kaji. So it's really fascinating to see this ka and ko in the verbs, like that change the word class into noun. So similarly, like adjective like, or the word big or elder or good, it exactly function like any other nouns or any other verbs. Like go, you can make it kata, going. You can cry, which is a verb. If you compare it, if you map it with the English language also, but you can say kakra. In crying, it become a noun. It function like a nominal, like a noun. And kada, like beating, kava, competition, and kava, competition, and kava, light. So all these things also shows that the semantically, when you map the English adjective like big, elder, good, they functions exactly as verb, because they can take ka and they can function like a noun. Now, these are the problems that is faced when I try to classify that adjective is like this. There is no other parameters that I can differentiate the semantics when we map with the English word adjectives to Mao. So there is no parameters that we can say that big in Mao and go in Mao is different. There is no parameters because it takes same grammatical categories, features. Okay, problems in classifying adjective as a distinct word class, as I have said. I think this is one example from Maola in class 8, 9, and 10, page number 10. So, ne ona kazikoe means you are a good child. But in Maola, it is possible to replace the good here with the another noun, like because kaji has turned to noun. Actually, kaji, ka has made the concept good into a noun functioning word. So we can replace exactly with maniko. Ne ona maniko ko, I mean you are the son maniko. However, in English, it is not possible. You cannot say you are child maniko. Like that doesn't make sense. So it is like ungrammatical. So this is also one problem we can face when we try to theoretically classify the adjectives is there in Mao. And problems in and another thing is also they behaves like predicate, means like verb. Maniko and jiwe. So it here G is also behaving like any other verb. Maniko no tawe, maniko no, like same thing as I have mentioned here. So it can take also the negation marker, maniko no jimoe, tamoe. So means it exactly follows the same grammatical rule with any other verbs. So now the question is, where can we find English adjectives? The English adjective like verbs in Maola, how can we find? So now when we look, there is a huge label called modifiers. Modifiers are those words that describe the noun. So modifiers usually includes nouns also itself, demonstratives, and also include articles, also numerals, because all these words, they describe the noun, telling about the noun. So they are called modifiers. However, when we say adjectives, it's a very distinct chapter that tells that adjective plays a grammatical features that can differentiate certain group of words from noun or verbs. So, but when we talk about modifiers, all the verbs, once they form into a noun, when they derive into a nouns, can behave like modifiers. I mean, they can modify or describe the noun. Or any nouns can also describe the noun. Or demonstratives, like that day, that boy, articles, a boy, the boy, the everything adds information about the noun. So numerals, 3 boys, 3 books. So and this derived nouns, kata, kaji, these are all placed word order. In terms of word order, it comes after the noun, so we won't go details to that. And when we look into Maola, written by Giridhar 1994, the concept jupe, or like the adjective likes, he said that he mentioned that the adjectives like are that adjective like verbs, there are these are the categories that can modify nouns. So genitivals, numerals, demonstratives, prenominal. Okay, when we talk about genitivals, like possession, like his books or my book, their book, numerals, demonstrative, there, that's prenominal verbs, particles, post-nominal derived adjective. So when we talk about post-nominal derived adjectives like kaji, kata, so all those verbs can also be derived adjectives or derived modifiers that modify the nouns. So nouns also functioning as an attributive. There are so many examples. I find that many Mao friends, they don't accept many examples in this book actually, but of course that's a different thing. So verb roots also can function as attributive nouns. Means verb alone can behave like the English adjective describing the noun. And in related languages, adjectives, there's one very famous grammar written by Alec Coop. He's a faculty in Nanotechnology University, so a grammar of Long Sang Ao. So in his grammar, I think this is one of the best grammar in Northeast India that is written so far. He don't even mention about even adjectives when you look the word classes in the chapter about word classes. He didn't even mention. And as I said that a language present a worldview, I want to come back here saying that a language helps you to see the world in a very different perspective, or in other words, a language change your mindset or even your way of understanding the reality, the external world. So that's how valuable language is, the language we speak. So for example, I want to take the example of the economist. He's Kei Chen, he's a faculty at the UCLA. What he did is, in fact, the reality is the Chinese doesn't have future tense. When you analyze the Chinese language, there is nothing like will or tale, tole. That will is not there at all. The language doesn't have that future marker at all. So what happened is he analyzed, he has hypothesized by doing a huge research that speakers of a futureless language, for example, like Chinese, are more likely to save money and to be more health conscious in the decision-making process. Or in other words, the native speakers or the Chinese are more mindful about how their current action influences their future consequences, because they can't express like, oh, I will eat later, I will become this, I will become that. That if you say I will become a prime minister, if you tell to Chinese, probably he will say you can't say I will become. It will be more like I'm the prime minister or something, which will tell about the present. It can never describe about the future. So this changed a lot of the mindset of the native speaker. So this logic follows into habit of decision making. So that's why the language we speak or the way we think in our brain and what we say has a huge impact, because language represents a worldview. And also we can also look into the psychological science, psychological perspective. For example, German language is such that it is always goal oriented. So when there is an action done, the German will always, in their mind, they'll always see it, that very action is completed. When we say eat, they will always have in mind that they have completed the eating. They will look into the goal. So a researcher found that this is a paper published in 2015. So this group of researchers did a very interesting research work. Actually, what they did is the actions in the experiment that the German speakers always view an action in relation to that action's end goal. When there is an action done, German will always focus on how it will end and how it should end. So in the experiment, what they did is a video showed a woman walking in a park lot. So the English people, like which is non-German speaking, they say a woman is walking. I mean, which is okay, even like the woman is walking when they see the woman. However, Germans, they will have in their mind, they will be in their mind that where they are going, like including the goal of that action. Suppose the action of walking, then they will look into where it will go. So they will say a woman walks towards the car. So this walking towards the car will never, it's not there at all in the English language, because it is not goal oriented. However, in German, when we say I eat, it will always, the German will, in their cognition, in the mind, they'll always think about ending. So this will also have a huge impact on their lifestyles, on their belief system, or on their view about life and the reality. So that's why language is significantly important, as it represents a worldview. So now, why I'm saying this is because, for example, good morning. I think it's a very normal tradition for English speaking culture to say good morning. So interestingly, in Pumai villages or in church these days, they used to start saying "Vishoju Shona." For me, I find it very odd. I don't know like how you all feels or like Mao speakers will feel. What if I start saying like tomorrow or like coming to department and I started saying Kaji Chitu or something like that? Like it sounds very unnatural because our language are never deep with adjectives that describe something like that. Kaji Chitu or something like that. Or in English, they can always they can play with the adjectives to flutter so many things. So if we take a very like good orator English speaker from say Britain and bring to Sarapati and take him to a very old, very ordinary hotels, and if we tell him to promote that very hotel or the tea or snacks he or she they get, so he can use so many adjectives in saying that, oh, this tea made from the made by the indigenous people of living in that village with a beautiful tree, blah blah. They can make it so beautiful. So if we start saying like that in Maola or Ola, it sounds very funny. I'm sure it will sound very funny because we are not oriented with the adjective concept like in the English, because we are very straightforward. We just say, oh, you kill, you go, you eat. That's all. Like it's very straight the way we speak and the way our language functions. So what I want to say is here, when we see the word class, we see in A that there are word class that is nouns, adjectives, and verbs. So adjective could come from the verb eventually in future, from Mao adjectives or from Mao verbs. Adjective like root can come up. However, we have to constitute the features that can distinguish between, let's say, adjective and verb or adjective and noun. There should be certain features that we can differentiate, that it cannot come after this word or it takes this very marker or this grammatical category. It has to be always a list of categories that will help the student understand that adjective is a different or separate word class because of these features. So if all the features are same, there is no feature to distinguish between them, then we are only mapping the English language, but not understanding the real concept of adjective or jupe in Maola or in any language that we work on. So similarly, in B, adjective would come out from the noun because the language keep on changing like human being. It evolves and changes every now and then. In future, who knows? There may be no verb. You can distinguish between noun and verb. But what I'm trying to say is, in the second type, adjective would come from the noun, or adjective could even come from both noun and verb. However, we have to know those features that we can label and constitute that adjective is this because of these features. Similarly, the last one, adjective could come like be very distinct from noun or verb, or it could come from borrowed words from other languages. So what I'm trying to say is adjectives is not very, at the moment, adjective is not very clear in Maola or many of the related languages. So what I want to say is, let's keep searching for evidences. We never know. There are some few languages that have found, I think in Nepal, there are some languages that have 2-3 adjectives clear that can really distinct from the noun and verb. And I encourage, like, I always encourage myself and also all the writers or researchers working in our indigenous languages in Northeast India to always look and try to understand our language or describe the concept of our language from our window, not from others' window. Like look from Mao perspective, Maola perspective, not from other. By bringing a blueprint and just like put it in, because then the student will never learn the real value or the real taste of how beautiful the Maola is, how complex and how beautiful it is. So with that, I want to say thank you, and we can also have a Q&A. Yeah, thank you, Sir Sir Kolo. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for well research on Mao language. That Mao language have no adjective, and not only that, we have well research on Mao language and collecting data for that Maola database, and also we are looking forward for your further research on Mao language. And not only that, here you have connected not only the Mao language, but you have connected other regional language as well as the international language, like how Chinese language and German language are grammar and language. And also, you also have give us a detailed historical analysis on language. So thank you so much, sir. And we also look forward for your further research on Mao database, even for the days to come. Thank you once again. So now we will have a question and answer hours. So those who have any question or queries, you can ask, either drop in our chat box, or you can raise your hand and directly ask from Dr. Sahiinii. Cuma katawa question burele arnob le morera have a chat box questions dano types of thola pili le. Kaya arena. You can Nino meet that or not the question. Unmute thola.
I think she can unmute herself.
Kaya arena meet unmute thola the nilano. Unmute here. Unmute thola the kaya arena. Unmute so questions are not really no. This overly in the chat box here types of thola questions to be there. Kaya arena. Okay, Kaya, you know the two question. Okay, sir, you can check in chat box and answer that question. One question is there.
Okay, by Shivangi So, okay. What role does indigenous community play in community building? I think this is not really related to what we're discussing here, but what are the roles that indigenous
Sorry, sir. Actually, I left out one word. I meant what role does indigenous language play in community building? Sir, I mistyped the question. So sorry.
Oh, okay. So I think when we talk about culture or indigenous people, or when we talk about any group of people, our knowledge or information are all carried by the language we speak, by the way we think, by the way we feel, which is all primarily based on the language we speak actually. So I think the language plays like the crucial role in building a community. If the community doesn't have a language that is distinct from the other, then our way of looking the things or understanding a community become very general and neutralized. So in the context of Northeast, I think language plays a definitely very important role for our identity, for who we are and what we are. So here, Sir Asufii, he asked, what must be the starting point here after we must place our focus onto? I think what I will suggest to my colleagues in SAI department is we should have a database. For example, if whoever has worked on Maola, if they all collectively have a database owned by the community, by the Mao Academy or by Asufii Institute. Suppose I work on, let's say I have 5,000 words in Mao, I can give it to the database. So I don't need to work on that 5,000 words again. Someone can move on and work beyond that and add more and more, it will add the wealth of Mao more and more. So I think the first focus should be database, and I request that whoever published in Mao should always work collaboratively and share your research work where your works are is publicly, that it can be accessed by everyone. And the data should be given to, I think, either the Mao Academy or Asufii Institute. Definitely they should have a place where they can deposit the data that can be available or can be accessed by everyone. I think the database should be the first thing. And after that, once we have the database, then when let's say we publish a huge database of Maola, say word list of 5,000, and which is open access, not necessarily for commercializing, then the year they publish the database, someone can point out saying that page number 5, section number 3, there is something wrong. Then in the next edition, we can correct it and we can add more and more, but not start again from from scratch. I think too much of research work starting from scratch, we have wasted a lot of time. So I think we need a database where we can collaboratively work together. I think that's my view, with the current situation, especially in Northeast India.
Thank you. Sir, next question we have Issue L. Issue L, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. It was a very nice research, a very meaningful, a very good one. And thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
This is not my specialization, so I'm just wondering whether such kind of adjectiveless language are found in other related languages like Angami Pochuri or some even other Tibeto-Burman languages.
So there are, I think, two things here. For example, one I saw about the Mao, about the Ao grammar written by Alekup, one of the leading linguists in Northeast India. So if we read his dissertation, you will not see anything about adjective, in fact. But however, we will see modifiers, because modifiers include something which could include something like adjective, but we don't have a class called adjective because there are no parameters which we can prove it. And also I wrote a grammar as of my output of my PhD thesis. I wrote a grammar on like Pola. I think even in Pola, I could not find any criteria that I can distinguish so-called like the big or clever or tall, all these kind of words in like adjective, because they behave exactly like verbs in all the grammatical categories when we look in terms of sentences. And also when we look about some languages in Nepal, which are well done. In Nepal, according to what I understand, is many of the languages adjectives are formed, I think, because of the borrowed word from other non-Tibeto-Burman. And most of the, when you check any section where they say grammar, when you look at the grammar section, and if they say adjective is there, it's because those adjectives are all derived nouns, actually, if you see. So of course there are different perspectives. We say we can call it adjective, we can call it A or X or Y or anything. But the issue here is there adjective, so-called the English concept of adjectives, the one we were taught in the school grammars in Mao, or is it there in any language? I think that's the more like foundational question, because someone can just say adjective and just say that's describing the language. But however, the student will be so confused, even the concept of adjective, when we read that kind of grammar. That's what I personally feel, because if we don't have a criteria that can help us to differentiate between adjective and verb and noun, you know, that clear distinction, the features.
You were saying that like it can be nominalized. It can be nominalized, meaning to say that like it acts as a verb.
Is that noun?
Yeah, from the verb it can be nominalized. The adjective, the so-called this modifier, which you are terming it as a modifier as of now. So like it is still not, it behaves like a verb, but still it will be safer to class it under modifier.
Yeah, I think that is more appropriate.
I see.
Because when we say modifiers, mean nouns also can be a modifier.
Right.
Then when the verb is converted into noun, then it is logical now. The Maola students will know, oh, this can modify the noun because it has turned to a noun. It can behave like a noun, like kaju, or what's that?
Yeah, kakra, kaji,
kakrai, moe or something.
Yeah.
Kakrai, like a noun now, something like that.
Yeah. And yeah, regarding that, ka and ko. Hello.
I can hear you. Please.
Yeah. Regarding ka and ko, there is a you can I think you notice the vowel harmony in that.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting.
That is one thing I wanted to point out. And like another thing, I think way is an aspectual marker. Could be an aspectual marker, and there is an a as a sentence marker.
Yes.
Sentence marker. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
There is another question from Sahiinii. You can check it in chat box.
Yeah. Okay. So say if there is no adjectives in Maola, then it have adverbs in Maola. So I have not closely looked into the adverbs, but I'm sure that adverbs also behave like noun. And I'm not sure if there are some criteria that we can differentiate the English concept like fast or slow or quick. If we can have a different class in Mao, I have not looked into that aspect actually. But however, in Pola, I can't find even an adverb, but there are few words that we can clearly differentiate between the verb and the adverbs concept, like in English in Pola. But I have not looked very close into this aspect actually.
Okay, if there are any more questions? Maka tahu question on Nepuni is not there. Okay, if there is no more question, then we'll end up this question and answer.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll proceed to next. That is, now we'll proceed to next. That is word of thanks, which will be delivered by Saraka. Saraka, you know, read this over really word of thanks. Baby of the. Saraka.
Hello.
Okay. Let's again.
Choma.
Oh, chose. Have the.
Upanya lodono top the hair close away. Church approach look as no, yes, it's a helimino. George Savoli goes on to the lowe. Cariso. Research cell Tomino. Ida Mumos Heduno Aragapi, ye Mushuga Bibono, Bukumika Lopene. Ye Reverend Father Dr. Nepuni Willeno. What sure where? What to kill? Ida Mukumi, you know. Papio, a co Mukruka Pokrako lop the way, ye, follow Maola he. Coivo Protole, Dichovano, Mushuno, Pega Pibono, Father Cragolo he, Father he Peganisa, Asa Chovo, ye Pokrakos, the way. Mushuso, Dr. Sahiinii, for he Pomugwe, Ana, for no Ikumi, Duno Lenusho. It's a Muchogapi, ye Upagapi. Echilu Pajigo Mucho Vosoga Pidno, Dr. Sahiinii, Pokrag Lopewe, for no Mushuno, Villili, he will solely, the Gojo Mutopher, he was Muchoga Pidno, Pokrag Lopewe. Ye Mushuso, Ijo Josovoli, Lo Oleno Show, Goivili, Memory, Supule, Goivili, Memosoidno, a repile, the Gojo. Law little show look a big commute of away. There's no ano pegos, Mosoipano, Mosoipano, Supule, Mochopule, Ecohibili, Pano Chakra, Jupule, Ecohibili, Pano Sumaculero, go here on Nogapi, ye a gold and no Prograpidino, or Anogapi, Crowd, Pepue, ye. Okay, so just solely law as you be muito fertile. Esse te hel muito feno, esse te hel muito asa chavo ocragolos jo to solely colo muito to pepe eu muito caso solo.
Arkal tere jaka kalochi mushu mozno pek peto kabi ye melahi chijoko muchi tijovana mushu tiba ku pek kabi to fertile wana krakoloza pewe. Chu vulo jo kabi ma to ye krakolos pewe ye okeso musu guchose heseshine juredli feedback form na ye jo hi replace of your dot mutafi pewe kala. And thank you everyone for participating, and I hope everyone had benefited from this webinar. And here is a reminder to all the participants that all the participants are asked to fill the feedback form once this webinar is over by this evening. Thank you everyone. Have a nice hour ahead.